Hey y'all, it's your girl Nadia,
And it's me, Coach T.
and we are two average people.
Yes, we are.
So, we are going to talk about something that is discussed often. And it is one of those topics that, you really don't, you can come at it from so many angles, and that's trust.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like it's something that, you say, oh, you must have trust in your relationship in order for it to work
Mm-hmm.
and be effective. But what does that really mean? What does trust really mean, right?
Yeah, a lot of times trust is something that means something kind of individual to each individual person, and then when you try to bring that together, it's not necessarily as clear cut as you might think or feel it is on the initial.
Yeah, so, we'll take you back. First, we'll take you back on a little journey with us. We actually had trust issues towards the beginning of our marriage. And, it's not what you think your typical trust issues would be, like cheating or like you lied to me about something. But our trust issues were a little different, and we had to recognize it
Yeah,
as trust issues
yeah,
when we first started noticing, that we were feeling a certain way about things. And so I'll start with me. I grew up, like I have talked about in other um, talks. I grew up, with my mom in the house. I had men around, like my cousins around here and there, but for the most part, it was me and my mom. And so, when I got married, it was really hard to transition to that role of holding on to his word, because I didn't know what that was like. I've never seen what that was like. I didn't grow up in a house where there were married married folk, as they would say. And so it was difficult for me, because he would say something, and it's like, "Don't you trust me?" It's what I said, and it's like, "Yeah, I trust you, but." Dot dot dot. you know and so
yeah,
that was difficult because for him, he's trying to be a leader and trying to be the head of our house and trying to be a great husband and provider and protector and all these things. But how does he do that with someone who can't hold on to his word, right? And so I say that to say that not there's always um, constructive criticism, there's always questioning and all of that. But I realized that I didn't trust him to lead the ship because I didn't know how to. I just didn't know what it was like to really trust someone that I picked, right, to be
mm-hmm.
my husband, to really, really lead the ship. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I mean, also from my perspective, some of my issues were kind of surrounded what I realized now surrounded around the way I perceived women and coming up. And, one of the things that for me that was really triggering was when she cried. And oh my gosh, she cried a lot. So for me, it was like, it came across more like tears of manipulation more than anything else. And it's something that I had to kind of walk backwards from so I can kind of look at the reality of what it is. And in fact, sometimes it's just an emotional outburst, and sometimes it's what she's actually feeling in that moment, and sometimes it's a whole lot of things. I couldn't restrict myself to that one thought process and think that I have gotten the totality of what it is to live and experience that, from that perspective. So trust for me was also kind of complicated because I had to unpack a lot of things in order to get to a place where I can even hear another option. So yeah.
yeah. I mean, it like I said, it wasn't something that we recognized as trust in the beginning. It went from lots of conversations of, I said that, or, you know, what's happening now? What happened?
Mm-hmm.
To us really recognizing that, what, we really don't trust each other in that way. And it's what was interesting about our dynamic wasn't that we were doing anything wrong,
Right.
because a lot of the time you
Right.
think of trust being broken, from something that has happened in the past, right? Or in your current situation.
Absolutely.
And in our situation, what was so unique was none of us were doing anything wrong. It wasn't like a trust was broken. It was more from the place of we didn't know how to trust each other to start in those areas.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I feel like 100% agree with that. It was our own individual issues around the concept of trust, and then trying to meld those two, and then realizing, hey, this square peg does not fit in this round hole. Like,
right.
What are we doing?
What are we doing? Yeah. Yeah. So that I thought, and this is why I wanted to talk about this, because I thought it was very interesting. Because trust is such a broad topic, and obviously we can't even begin to scratch the surface in this podcast series. But we definitely wanted to get personal with you guys and talk about, some of the things that we struggled with when it came to trust. And so once we realize that, we really have this trust issue, we had to now start to figure out where that stemmed from, and like I said, for me, it was, just not growing up with a man in the house to have to give me any instruction or anything like that, right? And for him, I think, well, I'll let you say, babe, for you, when you realized, okay, this was a trust issue that I have with my wife, what did you dig deep and think about where that stemmed from?
Well, yeah, I had to, but more like the first thing I had to do was allow myself to feel what it is I was feeling about it. Because it wasn't until I allowed myself to feel it that I could actually say, oh, that's what it looks like on the outside.
Right.
Like the way it happens in my head and the way it comes out through the experiences of others and how they're telling me they're experiencing me is two different things.
Right.
And so I had to allow myself to feel it, not to act it out, but to feel it so that I could identify it. And I could say, that's that right there. What's that right there? Like, we know what this is. We know what that is. But what's that?
Yeah.
Like, I can't figure out what this is, an anomaly that I haven't quite understood.
Right.
So then I had to, from identifying that, then I had to go back and say, well, where does that stem from?
Right. Right.
And so I had to just kind of back up the truck. And for me, when I realized was watching how the women in my world moved and how that kind of shaped my way of thinking was really where it was coming from. And then I had to acknowledge my feelings around certain things that I saw. And one of the things that I saw extremely prevalently was, oh, he ain't looking? All right. Whew. All right, cool. Which for me was like, so even though you say what it is that you're trying to do is be balanced and equal and try to make it make sense, in reality, what it seems like it is just trying to gain power over the situation, which for me made me go, ooh, like, no, I'd rather just deal directly. Just tell me what it is you're thinking. Tell me what it is you're feeling. Don't have me guess. And if I have to guess and I can't trust what it is you're going to say while I'm guessing, then that just is way too much complication. And I immediately shut down.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's common for you to feel, of course, if your partner comes to you and say, hey, look, we have these trust issues, it's common to take it personal, or to internalize it. And so what we had to do was first try your best not to see it as an attack necessarily. Obviously, our situation was different, like I said, because there wasn't anything that we were doing wrong. This is a little different if you find yourself in a situation where you've lost trust with your partner for something. And so speaking from our experience, we really had to step back, like we said, and really say, okay, where does this stem from? But one of the hardest parts was, like I just mentioned, was making sure that we didn't see it as an attack on each other. Wait, you don't trust me? What? Wait, so I'm doing all of this and you don't trust me? Like what? So,
right.
It's easy for you to fall into that kind of that world of, okay, so now you don't trust me. What else? You don't love me now, or you don't this and you don't that. And so we had to be very careful not to fall into that place, because then you kind of it kind of goes down a road that you don't really want it to go down.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, first, really try to find where it stems from. Two, try not to take it as an attack, but more of a learning experience. And we spent a lot of time talking about what we were feeling around these issues, where this, why we were feeling what we were feeling. And I think that really helped us kind of come to some realizations that, even now helps us. Yeah. This is something that took some time, y'all. So we're talking about this in 15, 20 minutes. Okay, but this one took some time.
Yeah.
It took a lot of conversation. It took a lot of individual work and processing to get to a point where we could feel like we could trust each other in these areas and set ourselves up to trust better in other areas of our relationship.
That's true, because one of the things that is always said in relationships is communication is key. But I always found that statement problematic. And I found it problematic not because it's not true or real, but because it's not complete.
You always say that.
It's not so complete,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, and the way I always said it is, you have Soldier A and Soldier B on a deserted island together. They got stranded both, and now they're the two only people on this island together.
Yeah.
Now they're enemies by war, right? So they should be fighting each other. Yeah. But if they both want to survive, they need to count on each other to get off this island. Here's the problem. They don't speak the same language.
Right.
So when you say to those people who are in that predicament, communication is key, what does that actually mean?
Right.
Because they don't speak the same language, and it's very difficult for them to communicate. That's the part that we never account for in a relationship.
Yeah.
We never account for the thought that it's difficult to communicate well. And it's difficult not because it inherently is difficult, but it's difficult mostly because we don't know how to do it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So you have one guy over here speaking English and another guy over here speaking, Mandarin, and they're missing each other. I mean, they're not going at all in the same directions. Mm-hmm. In order to establish any kind of communication with that scenario, though, the first thing you need is trust. So before you can establish a communication relationship, you have to establish, even without words, I'm not here to hurt you.
Right. Right.
I'm not here to hurt you.
Right.
Hands up. Like, I'm not here to hurt you. We could do that, but I'm choosing not to. If you're cool with choosing not to as well, please let me know. But again, since you don't speak the same language, you're going to have to try to find an actual way of communicating that point. And so that's the part that needs to happen first. You need to have something that builds enough trust that when you begin the communication portion of it and it's awkward and you're trying to make it work and you're trying to make those square pegs fit in those round holes and you're trying to make it make sense, you can actually get to a place where it does, because you don't have to start from a place of, what you talking about, Willis?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You can start from a place of, this person's not trying to hurt me. They're trying to tell me something. I just need to hear it. And I will hear it because I'm here for it. Let's go.
Yeah.
You need that energy.
That is really great, babe, that you say. I mean, especially at the part where it's like, hey, I'm not here to hurt you. For everything that you put forward, and this is with trust or anything, for everything that you put forward in your relationship, you need that other person to match, try to match it, right? And so he can say all day, look, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to drive this ship and to carry us along. But if I'm not coming in with that energy of, you know what? I hear you, babe. I know you're not trying to hurt me. And I'm going to do my very best to try to remember that and keep that in mind as I move forward together with you.
That's a big part.
Then,
it's a big part.
So for everything that you try to put forward, and I'll say it more than once, even in different podcasts, you really need to have someone who's going to match that energy, because it's only then that trust can begin to be established, right? I have to trust him that he is not going to hurt me, but he has to trust me that I can hold on to
That's fair.
those words, right? And that's gonna, that can be applied to anything that we do in our relationship. And that was kind of the start. And eventually, he's gonna show me things, hopefully.
Well, that's
show me
the goal.
things
Yeah.
and say things that will support that thought or that action of not hurting me. And then I'm gonna now, try to support him in facilitating that. And I'm kind of going on a tangent, but the point is, you want to have that for every effort. You want to have that the other side, that other person, putting in that same effort as well.
Yeah, I gotta say, that makes
Does that make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense.
Okay.
I'm an advocate for what I call say both sides. Say both sides. So don't just say the one side that applies to you and act like there is no other side and there's no possible way there could be, because that's ridiculous. And that is one of the underlying issues that will eventually erode trust.
Mm-hmm.
Because eventually I'm just going to go, well, you're not even listening.
Right.
Why bother talking?
Right.
Now, when you get to that place, that's a dangerous place, because that doesn't always mean, well, I'm going to leave now. But that also means if you're not going to leave and you're not going to trust and you're not going to communicate, well,
right.
Now you set yourself and your partner up for a lot of failure.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
You have to be mindful of those places where it's important to say the thing you're trying to say while also acknowledging the thing that you are hearing, making sure that they're separate and independent, but making sure they're both present in your words and in your actions.
Yes.
Because
yes.
if not, you'll eventually erode the trust underneath. So it makes perfect sense to me what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like we always say, these are some of the things that we've done. Every situation is going to be different. Again, if trust is broken, that's a whole nother discussion that we'll have on another day. But in this topic of trust, we wanted to share how, we overcame a trust that it was like we were building a trust that we realized, wait, how do we do this? And so we had to build that together and,
right.
Come together and really, really work through it. So remember, try to keep your guard down when it comes to the trust issue, because it's very sensitive. It can be triggering if you're not careful. So remember to try to keep the guard down as much as you can. Try to find the root of the problem or the root of where your trust issues lie. And once you've found that, then you can talk and say, hey, I think this is what I'm experiencing. This is what I've come up with as far as where the root of my trust issues. And always be open and willing to hear your partner tell you that, because these types of conversations can be very hard.
They can be very hard. So let me ask you a question. When we finally come together, we're a married couple and we found ourselves working, where we're clicking on all cylinders here when it comes to the trust part. What were some of the things that supported you're feeling trusted or trustworthy? And what are the things that kind of diminished that feeling?
Okay, your first question was, what are the things that supported my feeling trusted?
Yes.
Or trustworthy?
Yeah, like that I did trust you. As we grew and melded and matured, what are some of the things that I did or said that made you feel like, yeah, he does trust me?
I think it was probably more of the actions. Simple things well, first let me start with the words. I think simple things like, I hear you, I support you, and like I always say, creating that space to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think is always really helpful for me.
Yeah,
and was helpful for me.
that makes sense.
Being openly unguarded, if that is a
Openly unguarded. I like that. That's
if
going on
that
a
is
t-shirt.
if
That's
I
going
can
on a
say
t-shirt.
that.
Openly unguarded.
I think that was also helpful because, like I said, talking about this can be very difficult.
Yeah.
And so coming to someone who has their guard down. And sometimes you need to say, look, hey, I need you to just keep your guard down for me, because, these conversations are hard and it's hard. We're not going to act like, yeah, we just sat and we're like, hey, yeah, so, I don't trust you. So how about that? Let's go celebrate. Obviously, these are hard conversations.
Yeah, for sure.
It involves tears and it involves,
It's
a lot of processing. But I just think, to answer your question, just being openly unguarded and just giving those little supportive statements of, I'm here for you. I support you. We're going to work through this. Those types of things are very helpful. And then your actions over time, always are very important. And that can look like giving somebody space to process. Sometimes when you have these deep conversations, just going and taking some space away from each other. It's not because, that doesn't mean going to bed mad or sleeping in separate rooms.
No.
But, just taking an hour or two to just process alone, maybe putting on your favorite movie. My husband loves to watch funny things when he, he's deep in thought.
I do.
So, just doing something to kind of relax your mind is also really good for you. And so just those types of little things are also really supportive.
Yeah.
And he's very good at saying, hey, you look like you need some space. So I'm just going to go downstairs, but I'm here if you need me. Right. And so that's a way of saying, hey, I'm not mad. We're good, but I'm going to give you your space to process. And those little things are really, really helpful. It doesn't have to be a lot. It's really those simple things that really helped me. What was your second question, babe?
It's just the opposite. What are some of the things that maybe as we were coming up and maturing that may have happened that you kind of found like eroded the trust versus galvanized?
I think you naturally want it to happen quicker, right? And so sometimes, when I would cry, I'd kind of feel him like rolling his eyes in the background or whatever. He may or may not have been doing that, but just knowing that energy was there because the lack of trust was there in that area, those things, makes you feel like you can't be who you want to be in that space sometimes, right? So you have to remember, though, that for as much as you're trying to work through your issue, I would say, so is your partner, right? And so you have to give room for the mess ups, or you have to give room for them to work through this. So it can't, I had to remember that even though my crying was annoying because he had this trust issue, I can't just say, okay, well, I'm not going to cry in front of him anymore. Right?
Yeah,
One, that's not realistic, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like crying for whatever the reason is. And so I should be able to do that in my house and in my space. But also, it takes time for him too. And so I can't see it as you just don't get it, right? I have to try as hard as it is to say, okay, he is working through. I had to trust that he was actually working through his trust issue of manipulation when I cry. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
And so that's the hard part, is actually, now that you have it on the table, when it happens or doesn't happen, then you're like, so why the hell did we talk about it? Because if I told you how I felt and you still rolling your eyes when I cry, so why did we talk about it? You talked about it because, remember, everything is a process.
It's a process.
Right? Nothing happens overnight, especially when you're dealing with someone else, right? Because you are two people. You have everything about you is different. You're not the same person. And so your process happens on different levels. You have to exercise patience and understanding, right?
Yeah.
that is hard, y'all. I ain't gonna lie. It is hard. There's times when I'd be like, I'm just gonna go in my little closet and cry when I want to, because if that's how you're gonna act, then I'll just go cry when I in the closet, right? But then who else? I want to be vulnerable with him. Like, I want to be able to share my emotions now. And so obviously we're at the point now where it doesn't, we've worked through that, but that part's really hard, I think. I'm sorry, now I'm talking a lot, y'all.
No, that's what it is. I trust that you got it together. I trust you. You got it.
How about you? I asked you the same questions.
Okay, just for the sake of ending on the positive, let's start with the things that kind of eroded it a little bit. For me, it was the emotionality was difficult, but once I realized that my issue was around being manipulated and not wanting that, like to extreme levels almost, what I had to realize was my brain works extremely logically. So if in my world, if out of a 7-day week you're crying 137 times, there's a certain percentage of that is just pure manipulation, just strictly off the numbers, strictly off statistics. That's how my brain works. And so I had to work past trying to be a detective and sort out that small part of the percentage that I believe was actually manipulation, that, okay, the rest of this wasn't, but this part was definitely manipulation. I'm going to seek this part out and I'm going to, woosah.
Right.
I had to let that go entirely because I won't ever know.
Right.
I will never be accurate with that calculation. And if I am accurate, I will sacrifice my own peace and my own sanity. Mm-hmm. And one thing I'm not going to do is sacrifice my own peace and my own sanity for my own paranoia. So I'm not going to do that. So that's one thing, though, that eroded it. It was just, for me, it was the sheer oceanic feeling volume of having to navigate that side of it that made it difficult, because one time, 2 times, 3 times you're like, yeah, okay, you're good, but the 37th time you're like, bro, seriously. So that for me was tough, and in order to get around that, I had to let go of trying to parse it out and just accept that in some cases, maybe it might be manipulation. Now what? Now what you gonna do about it?
Yeah.
What you gonna do about it?
Yeah.
Can we move forward, or can we not move forward?
The work comes in.
That's where the work comes in. Can we move forward, or can we not move forward? Right. Are you being manipulated right now? Does it really matter? Because either way, this is the one you said you want to spend the rest of your life with. So since that seems to be at least a little bit of time left on that clock, I should probably just focus on the parts of it that keeps the train moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing that, not to cut you off, babe, but one thing that I ended up learning through our process was I was crying with him a lot. But one thing I realized was I felt the safest with him. I felt the most protected with him. Mm-hmm. When you go out into the world, and I'm a nurse, so I go out and I'm saving lives and taking care of babies, you have to put on a shell, right? You can't go out crying every 5 seconds because, your PMS is starting or whatever the case may be. You have to go out into the world. When I'm around my daughter and all these things, you do feel like you have to pull it together and mm-hmm. be a strong woman, right? But when I'm with him, I felt like I could be myself. And myself isn't crying all the time, but myself is, hey, babe, it's hard right now. So yeah, I learned that through the process. So where he saw the 137 cries, it was because I felt the most safe in his presence.
And let me be clear, the moment that was actually communicated to me. Now, hear my words. I didn't say the moment she said it, because she might have said that same 137 times. You feel me? Every time she cried, she might have said those words. But the minute it was communicated to me in a way that I registered it, that I actually put it in the computer, hit enter, and then Apple S and saved, and then was able to recall that memory every time she cried, then I realized she's crying because she feels vulnerable enough with me to expose herself emotionally in that way.
Exactly.
And that might be really, really hard.
Yeah.
So whatever you might be feeling about being manipulated or paranoid or whatever the case may be, she is giving herself to you in a very deep, passionate way. So what I need to do is honor that if I say I'm going to honor that.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yes. I love it.
So it went from a source of frustration to a source of, I must be doing something right. Because he trusts me enough to be this vulnerable with me right now.
Right.
And still a very hard road because you have your own feelings too.
Right.
You know, and the hard part about that is the more you kind of give in to that is the more you also feel like, well, what about me? Right. Will I get lost in that process? No, you don't, but that's for another podcast.
Yeah.
Right now, we're just talking about that first part, that trusting part where you have to just I believe you. Even if it's to my detriment, I believe you.
So I want to hear what I did good now.
Oh, okay. So what you did good. and hear me good, okay?
Okay.
You learned my language. So much of it, from a male perspective, so much of our communication when it comes from general male to general woman is I, as a man, am supposed to just communicate to you what you want to hear, and that's the extent of our relationship. If I express myself in any way, I run the risk of everything being from misogynistic to bossy to controlling to manipulative in my own way. And so men have that undercurrent of, okay, communication is really your game, and I'm supposed to just learn how to play it. But
Yeah.
But one of the things that you did was you said, well, how would you say it? And then you attempted, right or wrong, to try to speak my language. And I go back to the two enemies on the island reference, right? So now you have these two people potentially trying to work together who, you know, without trust, they're coming at it from opposing views. They're having that oppositional relationship. But now you have one going, well, instead of going against you, what is it like to go with you?
Yeah.
Somebody has to make that leap.
Yeah.
To say, I'm not going to buck against you. I'm going to instead just move with you and see what that looks like in real time.
Yeah.
In real life.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you communicated to me that showed me that you were going with me is learning how I speak and being okay with it. One of the things that you said to me, how you communicated to me that I trust you was when you said to me, because again, I'm deadly logical. So sometimes I don't always choose my words with emotion in mind. I choose it with correct or incorrect. And sometimes that comes out real harsh, even though I don't necessarily mean it to. And it was during one of these conversations that I was saying something harsh to her. And she said, that was harsh, but I know you're not trying to hurt me. You're trying to tell me something. So I'm going to try to do a better job at hearing what it is you're trying to tell me. And it immediately made me go, damn, I need to find better words. Because I was not trying to be harsh. You know, that wasn't my intention. My intention was just to try to be accurate.
Yeah. And
sometimes the truth hurts on either side of that coin. Yeah. So, but it did teach me that if she's willing to hear me from where I am, there's no reason why I can't for this one. Maybe not for every woman on the planet, but for this one, I'm going to try my best to make sure that she feels heard because she's trying to hear me.
Yeah.
You know, in Sunday school they said, how does the Sunday school song go? Because he first loved me.
Oh,
yeah.
I know you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the point is, you're able to love stronger or to trust stronger because someone took that step to really do that, not just do it, but to do it overtly.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that was you or not you, but it registered with me at that moment. So it's not about who got there first,
right?
But it registered for me in that moment, and that made me go, she trusts me enough to, even when she feels like I'm being harsh, to trust me through that.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that, because a lot of the time, like if you're stuck on the train track and there's a train coming and you got your headphones on and I'm going, hey, and you're just going, something's good. I'm like, get out of the way, get out. And you're like, yeah. Sometimes that's going to come out harsher than you want it to, because there's something coming and it can hurt you.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to hear me, or if I can't communicate that to you, we could be up for a catastrophe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just that little bit of give on your part was enough for me to go, yeah, this makes sense to me.
Yeah. Y'all, it is always good to hear the things you're doing right, but be patient with the things that you feel that you see as you're doing wrong. Just be patient with those moments, because they're all learning experiences, and as we learn, that's when we grow together, right?
Absolutely.
Like I said, this is a broad topic. We can talk about it forever, but we're going to end it here.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have a lot to talk about, y'all. Y'all gotta check us out. I'm excited. Y'all excited? You excited? All right. All right, y'all. We will catch you on the next episode. Remember, we are better together.
We're better together.
Talk to you soon.